Okay, everyone, we'll start in just about 1 minute to give everyone a chance to join. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session on Data Mesh in Action. I'm Alyssa Arroyo, and I'd like to introduce you to today's presenters, Gil Trotino and Barak Gablinger from K2View, who bring a combined experience of over 20 years serving enterprises in data-intensive operational and analytical workloads. Today's session is being recorded and will be made available on the BrightTalk platform after the webinar ends. During the session, we will present 3 poll questions to which we'd love for you to respond. We will share the anonymized statistical results of the polls with our audience. Finally, we will have a Q&A session at the end, so please jot down your questions in the questions box, and we will attend to as many of these as possible during the session. If we do not get to your question, we will address it afterwards in email. With that, let's get started, and I'll turn it over to you, Gil.
Thank you very much, Alyssa. Thank you all for joining us in today's session. My name is Gil Trotino. I'm Director of Product Marketing at K2View. Delivering this webinar with me is Barak Gablinger. Hi, Barak. Barak is VP Customer Delivery at K2View. He will actually share with us a very fascinating case study about data mesh for a Big Four accounting firm. We'll get to this very soon, but let's explore our agenda, and we have quite a packed agenda to cover today. So today we are going to focus on data mesh. Data mesh has become recently a very emerging topic in the data management domain. We ourselves talk to many customers, and we get a lot of questions and discussions around data mesh. Just recently, Gartner, the biggest analyst firm, published that they got few hundreds of inquiries around data mesh architecture and data fabric architecture. And we see the trend going faster, and more enterprises and organizations which consider data mesh when they are going to decide on their future data management architecture. On top of this, we do see also a lot of confusion in the market. And we'd like to clarify some of it, and we hope that we'll manage to clarify some of it today. So we are going to talk a little bit about the business drivers that drive organizations to consider data mesh. We're going to talk about the benefits and the challenges. And then we are going to explore and share a data mesh case study and show you how did we implement a federated data management solution using a data mesh via our data product platform. Barak will share with us this case study, and also will deliver a short demo to give you some impression about how does it look from the point of view of the end users that are using a data mesh type of architecture. As Alyssa mentioned, we'll try to allocate some time for your questions, so please feel free to post your questions already in the Q&A box, and we'll get to them towards the end of the session. We also ask you a few questions, and we really would like to get your feedback. We hope to we promise to share your answers with the rest of the audience during the session. So without further ado, let's start. So what drives organizations to consider a data mesh architecture and solutions when they try and start evaluating their future data management strategies and approach? The first driver, we believe, is merely the fact that other data management solutions, such as Data Hub and Data Fabric, have actually failed to deliver the time to value, and the agility which many big organizations require. And primarily because most of these solutions are highly central and they're highly dependent on central data management teams and central data management tools. As we know, in many organizations, different parts of the business, different business domains require access to different parts, different data assets. Marketing teams require different view of the customer versus the sales team, and of course versus service teams. So we see different needs, but all of them need the data on hands-on. They need the data for their operational day-to-day operations, and they would like to get the data without being dependent on IT teams or central data management teams. The data is highly fragmented. We see high volume of data in these organizations. It's fragmented across different systems, different technologies, different formats, structured as well as unstructured. And as we said, different business domains need to access this type of data. Therefore, we see that the data democratization trend is becoming more and more popular, a big topic, and there is a call for decentralizing the management and ownership of data and data access. However, these organizations still need to adhere and to comply to growing number of regulations, privacy regulations, data residency regulations, as we can see here. We know some of them are more regional, some of them are global, GDPR, CCPA, other regulations about private and sensitive information. We know some of the regulations relate to specific verticals or industries like HIPAA for healthcare or FIPS for financial services. Some of the regulations deal with specific data entities like PCI DSS. And again, endless number of regulations still need to be complied to and need to be addressed. So all in all, what we see is basically that data mesh is trying to address these conflicting needs, decentralize the data access and control of the data, and still adhere to these needs for central need for data governance and applying to data regulations. And as the quote from Forrester says, data mesh is not just about the data, it's about making the data to work for the business and to serve the business. Before we talk about or share with you the way we see data product and how we define data mesh, we'd like to ask you, and this is just the right time to ask you to answer the first question. What is data mesh for you? Is it just another data management or technology buzzword? Do you think it's a platform similar to data fabric? Or do you find it as a more data architecture or an operating model? Or maybe you don't know, which is also a valid answer. It's relatively a new term. Tell us, please, and please provide your answer to this question. What is data mesh for you? And we promise to share your answers very soon. And I see people are already posting their answers. Please go. It's like a very simple question, but still quite interesting to get your view. What do you think data mesh is for you? While you are answering, and please keep posting your answers, I'd like to share with you how we see data mesh. And we see data mesh actually in two ways or twofold. Data mesh for us is first a data management architecture, but it's also an operating model which empowers the different business domains to own, to access, and to deliver data product assets. And again, as you can see here, we see different parts of the organization: marketing, service, sales, finance, and others. Each one needs to get their own view, for example, of a customer. So the marketing needs to get the customer behavior and the services. Sales need a different angle of the customer data asset. Service, of course, need another point of view. So they need to get different point of view of different data products, and they still need to own it. They need to also to allow other domains to own it. And still all these domains need to be, of course, connected. And this is like very high level view of a data mesh type of definition that we see. And you cannot really talk about data mesh without talking about the four very famous and popular principles. So what are the key principles beyond a data mesh deployment? The first one is basically the domain-driven ownership of data. So data mesh basically puts the control of the data in the hands of the people who are closest to the data, which means actually the data owners, the business domains, the local business domain that need to access the data. By this, data mesh delivers the business agility, which is so much needed for this group of people, and accelerates time to value. So this is the first and primary principle of a data mesh. The second one is to treat data as a product. Since we have so many data consumers in so many different business domains, there is a need to look into the data as a product. And this is a shift in the way we think about data. A product means basically that we are going to deal with the data as any other product, and to support the entire life cycle across the different stages, and we'll see some of these changes very soon, and also to apply agile principles on the data, which means basically that we'd like to deliver quick and incremental value to the data consumers in this way. The third principle is about self-serve data infrastructure as a platform. Data mesh lets authorized data consumers to access and share data products. Therefore, in order to access quickly and easily the data products, these data business domains need to get tools, very effective tools, to access the data. And we'd like also to shield them from all the complexities found in the underlying systems, in the underlying data sources, technologies, etc. So this would be the third principle. And the fourth one, as mentioned, this is still the need to adhere to these global, regional, and local data governance, data privacy rules and policies. So these are the four principles we see. And I think it's a good time now to share basically your answers about what is a data mesh. So again, 8% think it's just another buzzword, okay? 12% see it as a platform similar to Data Fabric. 65%, huge majority of you guys, view it as a data architecture and operating model, so very consistent to our definition. And 14%, again, thanks for the honesty, 40% say, I don't know, which is, of course, very valid. So we talked about the data mesh principles, and we talked about one principle which we believe is crucial, and this is data product, deal with data as a product. So let's spend a few more words about this. And when we talk about the data product, the way we see it is that data product is a reusable asset that delivers complete, clean, and compliant data set to authorized data consumers, which are the business domains. It normally includes two types of data. It includes the metadata, which define things around the data, like the data schema, the way that we integrate with our different data sources, the synchronization rules with the data sources, data lineage, access controls, etc. And it includes, of course, the actual data, unified, clean, persisted, masked, that we want to deliver to the different business domains. Also, we would like to ensure that we look into the entire life cycle around the data product, and we support all the different stages, from defining and designing the data product through engineering and quality assurance, ending up with supporting and maintaining this data product, so it is effectively delivering value to all the different data consumers. So this is a little bit about data products, and here are some examples, very briefly, of the benefits we can get from data product. So, for example, when I'd like to deliver a 360-degree customer data set to a CRM application, and I'd like to provide a complete view of the customer, including master data, transaction data, interaction data, This is one example of a data product. Another would be to tokenize sensitive customer information to be used by operational and analytical systems. And the third one can be to pipeline inventory data from different chain stores to a central data lake for any kind of analysis using AI or machine learning, for example. The last one is when I'd like to prepare test data for CI/CD pipeline to support any agile delivery of, for example, a wealth management system. So these are just few examples of how data products can be used in an organization. So before we move on, another quick question to you guys, and it would be great if you can share with us your view on how valuable do you think a data product approach will be to your organization. Do you see any value when you look at a data product approach? Do you consider it? Do you see it valuable or not? And do you think maybe it can be even a game changer for your organization? So when you look at your data management challenges, please tell us how valuable do you see a data product approach in the context of your organization. Please post your answers across these four different questions and options, and we'll very soon share also the answers. We see some people posting. Please go on. You can still provide your answers. While we are trying to wrap, before we go to the case study, and trying to wrap a little bit about the key benefits of a data mesh. So again, I think we covered it. Most of it we covered already. The primary benefit for implementing this decentralized data mesh would be to deliver the business with the agility and time to market, and also support the scalability in terms of accessing data assets and data products. This is the first thing. It will also potentially reduce the IT backlog and enable better cooperation between the business teams and the IT teams if we implement it correctly. A second benefit would be about cross-functional domain teams. So with increased IT and business cooperation, domain knowledge will be enhanced and the business agility will be further extended. The third one, which is very important, delivery of faster data delivery for the business domains, again, without the need to be dependent on central data management teams and on the IT to operate every data product and to maintain it and to keep updating this. And finally, of course, it will deliver strong central governance and compliance if we do it correctly. So if we have all these nice benefits, why don't we go all to data mesh, right? Why don't all organizations go immediately and adopt a data mesh? This brings us to the challenges. And before we go to the individual challenges, we believe, talking to many customers, that to look into data mesh and consider data mesh, that most organizations, most big enterprises are not yet ready today to implement a data mesh type of architecture and operating model. And the main challenges are coming from the complexities that are inherent to manage multiple data products across different domains and manage it in a way that would be effective, but also in a way that would comply with these need for centralized data governance and compliancy. If you talk about specific challenges that we can point to, the first one would be about multi-domain data duplication. Of course, if we operate multiple data products in different domains, some of these data products need to serve other domains as well. So I'm from marketing, I need to also propose my data product to other business domain. This may result with data redundancy, which may have impact on my resource utilization and, of course, my data management costs. A second big challenge is about federated data governance. So different domains have different governance and quality management requirement. This is something that needs to be managed very carefully. We'll see also in the case study a good example of this. The third is about change management. To apply a data mesh architecture means a fundamental shift in all of our processes when it comes to managing data. So somebody needs really to manage the process of defining or redefining all these different processes and manage the change and establish all the data management infrastructure to support the data mesh. This includes also taking all our data integration, data preparation, data orchestration capabilities and adapt them or adjust them to data mesh architecture. And of course, this will require cost and has, of course, a risk with it. So we see definitely a long list of benefits, but also a very long list of challenges. And as I say, according to a little bit of exploring our customers and talking to some of the market analysts, many organizations do look into it, but most of them are not yet in the level of maturity in terms of processes, skill set, and tools to apply or deploy a data mesh tomorrow. This probably will be a journey for most organizations, and this will take time and a gradual approach to get there, and of course to get all these nice benefits that you can get from a data mesh architecture. I'd like now to hand it over to you, Barak, and to ask you to tell us about a real life story, a real life case study that you've been dealing with of implementing a data mesh architecture. Tell us a little bit about the organization and challenges.
So I'll speak about reality from the customer delivery perspective. So today we're going to speak about data mesh use case for one of the leading provider of consulting, audit assurance. We cannot reveal the name, but you probably are familiar with them. They have hundreds of offices, hundreds of thousands of employees, and they have tens of thousands of customers. And they actually wanted to address a centralized view for their headquarters to address topics as risk management and assessment, compliance across the globe for such global customers with the business planning and financial reporting. And keep in mind that this is across the globe, and each one of their local offices reside and hold the data. So, for example, K2View, as such an example, will have an office in Israel and in UK and the US, and each one will have this data in this vendor in one of those data domains / regions. So now let's go to the challenges, which you spoke about lengthy, and I think that even though there's much more to capture. So here are most of, I would say, their high level challenges. There was a long list of them. As you know, the data is fragmented, but this is amplified. Why is it amplified? Because each of their data domains / regions has their own data. So it's amplified to that extent. And even though they have, for example, a SAP or a Salesforce, not necessarily that in that data domain, it is the same. It might be customized and it might be a combination. So it's a wide variety of it. On top of that, there's the data residency regulations. Each country / region has its own regulations, but the key element in their requirement was that the data would reside within that data domain, so it can go to the headquarters for virtualization purposes, but can never reside outside. So it's on the fly. Another key element in what they requested was that each region / country data domain would have full control of what to expose the data. So it cannot be handled by the headquarters and can only be handled by the data domain itself. And not only that, it's the user profiles and what to anonymize / mask and what type of data to provide. So this is like part of the complexity, and we in K2View were able to address it, and we stand out quite impressively out of the others in the pack. So Now let's go to
Barak,
that.
before we go, interesting question. As you mentioned, when you met this customer, they were already after testing other solutions, trying to solve or address these challenges. Without solution names, can you tell us what were the key challenges? Why other solutions have failed to address these type of challenges?
I think that there's two elements here. One is we come out of the box with the concept of the data product that you can put in each one of the domains. The other one is our ability and flexibility to handle fragmented data and constantly ingest the data so it would be fresh and you don't have to go down to the underlying systems. And that gave them the ability to get in a matter of milliseconds the data. Otherwise, it was a lengthy process. On top of that, as well, is our ability to secure the data in the fly and on the premises.
Okay, and you'll show us this
Yes.
when you talk about the architecture. Okay, so let's.
Okay, before we dive into the actual how we addressed it, let's understand the concept and the key elements of K2View. And it comes as the elementary or the foundation of K2View that we vision the world in what we call data products. And essentially, it's siloing according to the line of business, which can be as well the department, in such as a customer, such as a credit card, such as a claim, or maybe even all of them, or even one department would have a flavor of customer and the other one will have the customer. So, and we have this ability to support this in a very easy manner. And not only that, we silo the information so it's not breachable like other database, which gives us a very secured platform. And I wouldn't say unbreachable, but it's almost impossible. Okay, so now that we have this data product, now let's look how does it work.
And we focus here on the customer entity, right? But this can apply to any business entity, right?
Anything that you can, which is suitable or you need in your market, as you stated, it can be the customer. And the side to this, it can be, for example, a credit card, an order, or an office, whatever.
Supplier, employee, whatever.
We are very agnostic and flexible in that way.
Okay.
So if you look at the left side of it, you can see that the platform of the information resides from traditional databases. It can be Salesforce, which is SaaS, or any other SaaS application. It can be MDM, it can be a cloud. And what we do is we gather it into what we call a micro database, which is our data product. So once it reaches us, this is in memory, you can do any transformation and filterization and anonymization. And since we look at it as a single instance, it is done very quickly. And not only that, because now it's no longer, it's agnostic to the technology which was behind it, it's very simple, and it's actually a relational database in memory. And it's important to understand that once we have this all captured and secured in one micro database, we put it in a repository, or we can ship it across to anybody who needs it. It can be Snowflake, it can be Salesforce, it can be anyone who needs this information. It can be part of it, it can be all of it. And what we, on top of that, do, we know how to identify delta changes. So not only that we have to, once we ingest the entire information, we know how to detect delta or changes that were occurred on the data and the originating data sources.
So, for example, Coca-Cola, which is one of the customers of this big four accounting firm, all the data relevant to the Coca-Cola account or customer will be extracted from all the different data sources, regardless of technology and format, and will be unified and managed in this micro database, right? And the same will go for Delta
Correct.
and CVS, right?
Yeah, and each one is handled independently. So we can handle multiple processes and multiple threads simultaneously. A key element here is to just understand it, that if, for example, you have like in a database with 10 million customers and you have each month a billing and invoices, it can be trillions and many millions of data that you have to scan and across data elements. But in our case, because it's a single customer, to scan it and do the transformation is very quick and on the fly. Not to mention that, if it's different platforms and different technologies, it's almost impossible to do it on this scale.
So we have an instance for each and every customer, which is the MicroDB. And this data, once it's being unified and again continuously updated, can be delivered to any data consumer, whether local in the domain or globally, as you will show in the headquarters, right?
Exactly stated.
Okay.
One last sentence, and I spoke about the security. Every instance has its own key. And that's what I said, it's almost mission impossible, because if you have 10 million customers, you have 10 million different keys. So if even someone breaches into one, it's one customer. It's a catastrophe for this customer, but it's only one. Okay.
Move on.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so now that we understood the concept of the data product in K2View, now let's start and build the principle that we use for this customer. And if you look at it, you have to imagine that in this case, in this illustration, it's 2 domains, but you have to deduct that it can be for dozens of data domains. Now, the first floor or establishment is the data domains. Each one is separately. And as I stated, each one can have its own data sources. Oracle, SAP, and in the other, it's SQL Server and MySQL. Some of them might be common, like Salesforce and like MDM. And we have an integration that puts the information into the data domain, and we'll speak about it in a moment. And the next layer is a totally virtual layer, which is the headquarters. This serves as an aggregated and virtualizing it to the consuming applications. In this case, it starts as the financial and business applications, but the customer that we're giving this solution immediately understood the potential here, both from the data domains, and I'll speak about it in a moment, and for expanding it for other consumers. Now, if we'll go to the next slide. So now let's look and focus on one data domain. So in this data domain, it has 2 data products. One that is local for this data domain region, which is specific according to it. It has its structure that suits its needs. And the other is a normalized, which will serve later on the headquarters. And this is constantly ingested, and every update that comes either from a CDC, either from an API, either from files, or we can push or pull into our data products this information. So we do not have to go to the underlying system whenever a request comes in.
So the purple colored schema here, this is the local view of the data based on the data sources.
This is the local data product, and the bluish is the normalized for the headquarters.
It will serve the headquarters. Okay.
Yeah. So now let's expand it to another data domain. Now pay attention that the bluish remains the same. It's a data product that later on we will inherit. But the local one, which is a different data domain, which is more like an orange or a goldish, I don't know what it comes up in your screens, is a bit different, because the data domain in that, the data product in that domain has different sources. Now, if we go one floor up, you can see the headquarters aggregates the data, totally virtualized, nothing as we had spoken is on disk, it's always on fly, and it's exposed to whoever is going to request it from the data consumer. So now you can see this is essentially the data mesh concept. One, the headquarters use a data product that is for its use, and it has the data domains can use this normalized, but on top of that, it got free of charge a data domain that can serve a 360, for example, in their data domain.
So once again, every business domain gets the autonomous ownership of its own data product. They can access and manage the data product they own, and still they can serve the headquarters and deliver an aggregated view of each and every business entity, in this case customer, to the headquarters financial reporting application, for example.
Totally
Right?
correct. It's democratizing the data.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now we understood the principles. Let's go and see how it works when data wants to when the consumer wants the information to come in an aggregated manner.
Okay.
Okay, so now let's start from, and you see the numbers on the right side. So a request comes in from one of those headquarters application, and it comes into the headquarter virtualization. Now we spread in parallel, this goes again to the performance, the transactions or the requests go cross all the data domains. In some cases, you will not have any information. For example, going back to K2View, we don't have an office in Italy. So if it goes to the data domain in Italy, it will come back immediately, no answer. But let's take the left side where the information resides. So the request comes in, and what we do is we go to the micro databases that was prepared in advance of K2View, of the normalized data in the bluish one, and we basically, before we push it to the headquarters, we do two activities. One is, according to the user profile for this specific domain, we check two things. One, can he get the information at all, or what data? It might be that he can see the customer, but he cannot see from this domain any address or finance, or he can see everything. The other thing is, there might be a case that for this user profile, he is able to see the entire data, but for example, he is not allowed to see the social security number or the zip code or anything like that. So there is a masking that is in the level of the data domain per what to see and how to see. Now, it's important to understand that the control of this profile is done solely by the data domain. It's not done by the headquarters. So it's independent in deciding what to expose to which profiles in the headquarters.
And in this case, was this a request from these specific organizations that the data privacy rules would be decided and owned on the local level, on the business domain level, right?
This was one of the key elements that other vendors were failing to address. And in our case, it comes out of the product. Okay, so now once it's aggregated in the headquarters, you can put, in their case, they wanted to expose the entire data as from each region, but you can put a transformation layer on the aggregated headquarters, for example, to do a golden record of the address or to accumulate financial information according to the business needs. In their case, one of their key elements was that they wanted to do a risk assessment across the globe. So if they have a new opportunity from one of their offices in, for example, Argentina, they need to know, will their risk assessment be impacted from the fact that they have other offices across the globe. So this is the data flow that we addressed. And I think that now, after we have illustrated everything, now we'll dive into the demo itself.
Absolutely. Just before we are still owing people the responses about how valuable data product is. Just to tell you that 52% believe that it's something to be considered, the data product approach. 25% only believe it can be valuable, but we are not yet ready. And 21% believe a data product approach can be a game changer for their organization. Thanks for your answer. So let's go for a quick demo and see how does it look like from the point of view of the business domain users who access the information.
Okay, so here on the screen, you see something that we have created on top of the fabric, as I cannot expose the application that they had used. But I want to explain a bit about this screen because it illustrates very good of what they had done. One, you can see at the top part of it is the parameters, the customer ID and the tokens. I'll touch that in a moment. The second part is the common or the aggregated customer information with its fields. And the second part, the last part, is the common address. And obviously you can expand it according to your needs. Okay, so now I'm going to start keying in the information, and I'll put in here customer 2. I'll take a token, and on purpose for this demo, I gave something that the tokens that would be meaningful. Now these tokens are attached to the user profile. They are not displayable in the real application. Okay, but from the token name, you can understand that I am a user, are now simulating that I can see for customer 2 everything in region 1 and everything in region 2. And now I'm loading it, and you can see that how quick it came in. So now if you look at the right side, you can see that each region has its own information, the same for the customer information and the same for the address information. Okay, so now I'm going to simulate the case that I, as a user, again, I'm going to simulate it that I can see only customer information. Okay, so I can see everything from region 1, but I can see only customer information from region 2. Okay, and you can see that one line disappeared from the address. Okay, I can do it vice versa and play with the profile that I have. But now let's go and look at the case where I'm going to mask the address in number 2. So you see in this case, again, all the information came in. However, the zip code in region 2, you can see was masked. So you can see here that the second record of region 2 was masked for me. Okay, so now let's go and do the masking for region 1 of the address. Now you see, and I on purpose did it, that the additional, or I would say different information was masked. So you can have the flexibility, one, according to the profile, decide what to show. Two, you can decide what to mask. Okay, so this is the end process, and it's very simplified. And in a moment, I'll just show what we have here. So at the end of the day, this is, by the way, the studio of K2View. It's a simple web service that exposes a graphic which has simple select commands, which in a very simplistic way, we can expose what we're going to look at. Now, the data products themselves, you see, this is the data product of the central, which holds only the aggregated information, and the region, and I took this region 1, has the information of the common and the specifics of the data region.
Thank you very much, Barak. Very impressive. We don't have time to drill down into the platform right now.
I would love to.
I know that you will do it happily. Let me just go back to our slides and to
Oops.
yeah. Yeah, we are short on time, so I think you covered the security area.
Yeah, this is a summary of the tokens and the dynamic. I think that if you could go just to the next slide, something that that we cover is our discovery capabilities, which are within a data source, and they are not limited to RDMS. It can be for any JDBC connector, and our ability to harmonize the data. One of the key elements was that not necessarily Coca-Cola will have the same ID in the different data domains, and we know how to aggregate it and harmonize it so it will be displayed as a global Coca-Cola.
Great, thank you very much, Barak. I think we've seen basically the benefits, and we covered it already. I'd like to just give the guys a chance to, if you'd like to get a more detailed product demo. So just tell us, would you like to get a demo of the data product platform? We'll happily schedule a detailed demo session for you to cover your needs and cover your use cases. Before we move to the to the Q&A part, and I know that we have quite many questions from the audience. Just briefly, I'd like to share with you who is K2View. So K2View, basically, we have a data product platform that integrates, processes, and delivers enterprise data via real-time data products. I think we talked a lot about it, making trusted data accessible at an instant. We are actually, we are like 12 years old. We were founded in 2009, 200 plus employees, and we serve, as you can see here, some of the world's largest enterprises, serving them for operational and analytical use case with our data product platform that can be deployed in weeks and deliver very quick value compared to other solutions in the market. Our data product platform can be deployed both as a data hub, data fabric, as a centralized data fabric, as you can see here, but also can be deployed as a data mesh, as Barak very nicely presented in this use case. So any architecture can be deployed using the same foundation. So it's the same technology, the same foundation. Therefore, it also can serve customers who would like to start with a centralized approach, a more traditional data fabric with a centralized data team, and then move gradually to a more decentralized, federated data mesh. So the journey is possible based on each customer maturity level and business and IT requirements. A little bit on some of the use case we provide. So very many use cases can be deployed or implemented on top of this data product platform. As you can see here, in Vodafone, for example, we deliver them real-time single view of their customers across all the different data sources to enhance and increase customer experience and help them to do personalized marketing for customers and many other use cases, which are based on this unified view of the customer. For Verizon, for example, we help them to take insights which are generated through different AI and machine learning capabilities and operationalize the insights. So take the insights from any BI tool and push it into the operationalized operating systems, make it really impactful. For organizations like Global Payment, which is a Fortune 500 payment technology company, we basically deliver data tokenization. So we help them to secure the personal data of their customers, the different merchants that they serve. So these merchants can use the customer data freely without the hassle of securing it and protecting it, because it's all being tokenized in a central vault using these micro DBs. And actually we do it for 2 1.5 billion credit cards.
And growing.
And growing.
I know it
and
personally.
You know them personally. For organizations like IQVIA and AT&T, we help them to basically decouple the data from applications, either to help them to migrate to the cloud. So using data product, they can simplify the migration to cloud applications, as well as data lakes and data warehouses, and also to modernize applications. So again, decoupling the data, creating these data products can, I would say, accelerate the ability to deliver new modernized applications and liberate the data from the application. And finally, another example, which is something we do for many customers, like American Express, is delivering test data management. So generate on demand, on the fly, test data to accelerate their development cycle and reduce cost. So this is a little bit about some of the use cases that we have. And now we do have like 8 minutes to cover some of your questions. So with your help, Alyssa, we have a lot of questions. So let's take some of them. Good. So there is here one which is quite long. How do we handle cases where multiple teams are trying to access the same source? Let's say the order team needs to need the basket team and the product team for the feature they want to develop. In this case, the organizational dependency is still valid. As far as I know, one of the most important benefits of a data mesh is that it minimizes dependency. What is your opinion about this case?
Okay, so there's several ways to, the answer is long, the question is long, and the answer
need to be short. Yeah.
Yeah, but in a nutshell, the best way is to segregate the data into, I would call, data products, and we have the ability to either inherit the information into other data products or share the information so each one can work independently.
Mm-hmm. Good. Another question is about, does data have to be persisted in these micro databases in the different domains?
It's up to you as a customer to decide if you want to be persistent or totally virtual. We support all of them.
Okay, so anything between full persistent to full virtualization can be can be done. Right. Another question. How is data integrated by the data products? Do you support, for example, Kafka?
We support a wide variety of integrations. It can be Kafka, it can be any JMS, it can be even CDCs, or push or pull APIs. We had a wide variety of integrations.
Okay. We have another nice one, short question. Where does this MicroDB sit? In the cloud?
So this again goes, if you're a cloud-based, it can be in the cloud. If you're on-premise, it can be on the premise. If you are like a hybrid, like both cloud and premise, it will reside on both of them. So it's up to you to decide, and you can even decide, okay, these micro like data products with the information, these ones will reside on premise, these on the cloud. It's very flexible.
Great. So very interesting question that somebody is asking, and he is asking, how long did the implementation take? You showed us something that looks quite challenging. How long?
Okay, did it take? So the pilot itself took something like I would say 2 weeks, and I was personally involved. And the implementations itself, and this is, I think, one of the key elements why customers love K2View, is the fact that we do it in a matter of weeks. So once, and we do it in full agility, so you can decide that you're going with part of it and doing instant or a quick adaptation of the data products.
So 2 weeks to implement the local level of these
and
regions.
The regions with those 5 sources, which were different from each.
And the headquarters level.
And the
all this took 2 weeks to implement for the pilot.
With 2 implementers.
2 implementers, I understand. So, Another question about the cloud is K2View. Can K2View be deployed on the cloud? I think you answered it, but
yes, we are agnostic. It can be on the cloud or on premise or both. We are agnostic to, by the way, to any cloud vendor.
Mm-hmm. We have an easy one. Will the slides be available after the session? Yeah, basically all this webinar is recorded and will be available on the BrightTalk platform as well on the K2View website. So you are welcome to view it and share it with your colleagues, of course. I think we have maybe time for one or two questions. Let me see. Yeah, I saw one which is interesting. Does the headquarters domain consider as dependencies of domain 1 till n, or headquarters is considered as a consumer by itself?
It's a consumer. It's an interesting question because you can have as well the headquarters as a data domain. In this case, it was not the case that all the data would reside. I want to mention something additional if it was already one of, again, the key elements that they decided to take us is that they had the ability or the strategy to either go with like a lean or skinny data domains and like beef it up, or to go by offices. We are independent in that way. So if tomorrow they open a new office in Timbuktu, it's almost, I wouldn't say transparent, but it does not influence the headquarters. So it's a very simple deployment.
Let's take the last one. Don't people want to get an integrated view of the customer unless regulations say otherwise?
I'm not sure. Don't people want an integrated view of customer?
So ideally,
yeah,
ideally we would like to get an integrated view.
Yeah,
right?
but you know what to do. You know, it's like we would love to drive 200 miles per hour, but there are some rules at each country.
Here, right? Okay, I think it's good. The rest of the questions we'll answer offline via emails. Guys, thank you very much for joining this webinar. Barak, thank you very much for sharing.
It was my pleasure.
Really a pleasure. If you wish to know more, of course, we are here available. And once again, the recorded session is available immediately after this session. So you are welcome to share it with your colleagues and look at it yourself. Thank you once again, and see you in the next webinar.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Bill and Barak.